So what I want to talk about is actually just take a step back. So we've looked at individual elements within essentially the UC portfolio, and all very, very powerful. I think you'll agree. But essentially, it's taking it to that next stage of saying, okay, you know what? How am I going to get to that point whereby I can embrace all these technologies, deal with all those challenges we've identified at the front end of today, and how are we going to be in a position where our joint telecoms or voice strategy or infrastructure is going to be able to support the future and the challenges coming down. Throw it over to you. What's your traditional telecoms environments? Anyone on VMware yet? You want to deploy on VMware? Okay, so VMware, okay. Is that on-premise or?
Well, cloud is on-premise, but we've got multiple premises, so it's for where I, yes.
In data centers within your environment.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone SX2000?
We still have one.
Okay, great. No, they're there. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's acting more like a trunk gateway to the 3300s, but
Yeah, but
it's still there.
Yeah, absolutely, and they will be. And you know, I've got clients who's
it just doesn't break.
Exactly, and it's the technology's moved on to help try and embrace that, but again, essentially that's a shift from the days of redundancy where you filled rooms essentially with lots of spare kit, and to the environment now where essentially it's software based. Anyone got non-Mitel estate within their telecoms infrastructure? Okay, multiple sites. Okay, got a question for you. Has anyone graphed the nominal code spent on telecoms recently? Really, really interesting exercise. I did that for one of my customers. Trying to get a handle on costs within the telecom spend within the business. So I went to the accounts team, said, can you give me access on a spreadsheet to your nominal code for telecoms? So of course, got this, and I graphed it. And you know what? That graph was doing this throughout the year. The FD, his focus on life, he's trying to manage his cash flow, and there you are in the telecoms world, essentially giving him a massive great variance on his telecom spend. Probably capex averse. I imagine the capex procurement at the moment is quite a strenuous exercise.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. So it's an interesting time. I was working, one prospect, a customer of mine who's moved to another organisation, and you know what? Global organisation, 80 sites globally. The head of projects is tearing his hair out because he's been tasked with trying to stabilise telecoms environment. Absolute nightmare. He is tearing his hair out, does not know where to start and embrace that. Just imagine the cultural differences globally, the people influences. I'm sure just on UK-based organisation, any organisation, you have these challenges. Multiple different types of phone systems. Massive overhead within the IT team of trying to actually manage that. Multiple suppliers within the supply chain. Just look nationally. I've got one customer nationally, 13 different telecom suppliers into his telecoms environment. 13. So it's not from an NGN number to Line to BT to us to lots of different other providers. How on earth are you effectively managing that? Do you have the time to manage that amount of suppliers for one element of your telecoms environment? I don't know. I would probably find that quite challenging. So our sort of view of the current telecoms environment, if we're probably quite frank about it, from managing it, multiple suppliers, multiple systems. If you've got multiple sites, you've got covering all of that. Complexity around billing and invoice. I don't know how long does it take people to work through their telecoms bill monthly. How much time would you say spent rule of thumb in a week, in a month, a day, half a day, a few hours, days?
Half a day.
Half a day, just ploughing through invoices and signing stuff up, and that's that's a lot of time spent, perhaps, along with all your other challenges. The contracts, the classic, let contracts over for a wallop, 3 years, rock, into another, line provision for argument's sake. Is it confusing? I go to some customers and work with them, and it's incredibly confusing. I'm coming from the industry, and I'm looking in. I've got the benefit of not getting involved in all the people issues going on. So that's really, it's not gloom picture. Don't get me wrong. It works. Telecoms works, but actually, if you could declutter that area, if you could stabilize the cash flow, if you could actually be in a position where you simplify your supply chain, what would that do to, personally, your work? And I guess you're all IT. Am I IT? Yeah? What would that do to your day? What would that do to your week? What else could you do with that time? And we're not even talking about outsourcing everything, you know, as we're not, you know, yes, that's an option, but what else could you do with that? Well, our view is ultimately the end goal, and I was talking to a gentleman here in the break, it's a journey. It's a journey to go on, so whether or not you're SX2000, whether or not you're virtualised in your own data centres, the journey to the cloud is, you know, it's a plan. And I work with customers, I don't, you know, I go in there, and there's no way I would suggest, let's put straight in the cloud, let's take you from multiple SX2000s, multiple analog systems, and put you straight into the cloud. I would be bonkers to introduce that immediate risk into your organisation. You know, you would probably say, you know what, Richard, thank you very much, we'll be back in touch. The reality is to get to the cloud, you know, being in the cloud, does it deliver functionality? Does it deliver benefits to the way we work? We believe it does, based on the experience we've done. And I've got a real life case study we'll walk through step by step on it. But it's how we get there. So essentially, from our view, we've got a team of people inside. We're VMware accredited. We've got we've been building out our cloud-based services for 3 years. We've been doing SIP for 8 years. We were on the, we talk about trailblazing. We were on the point of trailblazing. We spotted there was a huge need for SIP into the marketplace. What it delivered was really, really smart, really, really slick, but it was trying to get the carriers and the manufacturers to 8 years ago to talk together. So what we did is we went out and we developed an application and sat between the two, so we could sit on an ISDN card, a T1E1 card, on a Mitel controller, and we could connect it into a SIP cloud, and we didn't have to put, didn't have to worry about changing our infrastructure, didn't have to worry about interoperability testing. We dealt with that within that connection. Taking that further forward, we're now taking that box and we're doing some really clever things which we'll touch on with round link. Ultimately, there's a lot of clever people we've got in the company. We've got 70 staff, so we're not massive, but we're certainly, got a good depth of skill set there. We work, the work we've done with Mitel, Mitel really saw the opportunity around virtualization, grabbed it, dealt with it, and driven really, really hard within that. And, we're now in a position where our hosted platform, so if you don't have any infrastructure at all, and you wanted a hosted platform, hosted voice, is Mitel. And it's not a bespoke product around hosted voice, it's a fully functional MCD on a VMware environment. If you want UC, you have UC. You want a multimedia contact center, you have multimedia contact center. It's turned hosted voice completely on its head. We've got organizations coming to us with 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 users wanting to deploy hosted voice based on that model. And that's a really exciting proposition. But it's exciting as to why organizations see that drive. The key thing though, it's great having this panacea of where we can head to, but it's the skill set we have in our toolbox to take you from where you are now to that place, and be it over a short period of time, be it over a number of years. But it's executing that element. I touched on that first point, so the first bit I presented over. Decision was made, project management, to actually move them from the engineering side of the business, and there are engineers, ex-engineers, wealth of experience in that team, but actually align them to the pre-sales function within the business. Because when you're going and you're working with customers and untangling and unraveling that world that we've touched on at the start, we need to control that risk, because there is a risk associated to it, but it's how we embrace that. And we've brought Prince2 into that function so we can actually contain and manage the logical sequence of events we go through. And that's, yes, the fulfillment's managed that way, but it's actually pulling it further forward to the discovery phase. So, the starting point. We've touched on today, within this cloud on the left, on your right, some really great features. The UC points that Lisa was positioning, the core improvements on the MCD, link, video, all sorts of different applications that you have at your disposal within your organization. And the question is how do you take that and deploy that out to your users? What are your options to do that? So the key thing here is it's all back to your users. Remember that role, the shift in IT, it's to deliver that user experience. Because last thing you want to be doing is putting in technology that's going to actually stop a knowledge worker, stop a fee earner, stop someone who's servicing a client's need from doing their job. Because that's a really, really unpleasant, prickly place to be. And what you've got to be able to do is give those users, empower the users to do what they want, give them the services you've been demanded they've got to get, bring your own cloud principle. But how are you actually going to deploy that out to the outside world, to your users? So, okay, on premise, you know what? Absolutely can deploy that way. Put a 3300, put it in a rack. I've got customers still doing that, taking new 3300s, because that's where they deem they're safest with the risk. That's where they deem the least amount of risk sits. That's not a problem within their environment. Conversely, we've got other customers here who virtualized, who said, you know what, I've built out this VMware core, I've put a lot of money into that environment. You know what, I'm really, really busy, I may have even had headcount reduced. If I've got one infrastructure that I know is always on, always available, I've got the skill set to manage it, why can I just not put my infrastructures in there, put my virtual MCD in there, put my virtual MAS in there? Have it within that environment, have the failovers I've got and the power, you know, that investment I've got board sign off for, let's just sweat that a bit harder. Of course you can do that. You can say, actually, you know what, I've got data centers. Yeah, you know, I've got, you know, one client of mine, three data centers globally. You know what, why are we not using that for voice? Because all the connectivity's into it, all the power provisions there, all the security's there. Instead, where does voice typically sit? In cupboards somewhere, or in a room. It may have a key fob access or a bit of security. Why have I put my voice there? Have you measured how much business of yours is done over the phone? One of my clients, 80% of their business is done over the phone. And you know what? The spend that's gone on to protecting and making sure 20% of their business is available is huge compared to telecom spend. I look at the telecom spend, you know, they've got old Rhapsody systems there, and there's a pain, there's a risk it goes down. You know, the pain to that site is huge, but actually 80% of turnover comes through that site. Why has that not been put up into an environment like your data centers? Or, actually, I don't want I don't have the data center environment. B, I don't want the headache of having it. C, I actually want to just subscribe to it and consume it as a bring your own cloud principle. Why not put it up into the cloud? Why not put it up into our data centers and subscribe to that service? So all that infrastructure on the bottom right-hand corner that you've got that's fantastic, that's going to really empower your users, be them desk-based, be they mobile-based, be they home-based, wherever they are, you've got choice how you deploy it. And you know the really, really exciting thing about this? You can actually blend it. You can mix and match it as you see fit. And that's the journey, and that's the exciting thing here, is you can spend your time focusing on the right-hand side. What applications, what am I going to need to help people do the job? How are they going to collaborate? How am I going to give the video? And actually, you know what, how I deploy it, I've got choice now. I've got choice. And I can move through this. And I'm not suggesting that we rip everything out and we go tearing off into the cloud. I'm not saying we do that. What I'm saying is you move at the pace that suits you. You have the choice to do that, exactly as you have the choice to control what mobile devices you bring in, what handsets you put out on desk, what applications you bring into the core. You have choice of where you deploy that. But it's a journey that you can progress through. So if your vision is ultimately to progress to the cloud, then let's start moving through that. And that may be the case with an SX2000 infrastructure. You know, you've got the SWAS environment, you know, SWAS investment from my time. How can we work that smarter? The key thing for us that really enables that is something called NetX. NetX is our SIP trunking platform. So we've sort of touched on a point. We've been working with SIP for 9 years. And you know, I can tell you some stories about the start of that technology that we were working with. You know, so we know through experience how to control and contain this environment. So what we've done is we've essentially, you know, let's look at what SIP gives you. First of all, it gives you the ability to be able to essentially move away from non-geographic numbers if you wanted. I don't know if any of you are business to consumer, any big B2C models? Okay, so B2C, typically, you know, most people, I don't know how they contact, is it mobiles your clients contact you on? Okay, so you put an NGN number in front, does that come out of your mobile phone bundle? Probably not. So you're now essentially fronting the business with an NGN, probably because you want to be geographically independent. You want to have resilience, i.e. if you can't get through, automatically routed through to a second destination. But what you've actually done by that, yes, you're trying to make yourself available, but what you've actually done is you said, actually, before you call me, I'll take some money off you. Thank you very much, I'll take some money. There was an Ofcom report, business to consumer, 41% of people surveyed wanted to contact and prefer to speak to their suppliers, the businesses who interact with them personally, over the phone. And if you're putting NGNs up in front of that and I'm calling on the mobile, actually, you know what? Why am I making it hard to do that? Instead, why not put a geographic number in place that enables you to actually grab, they can call, it comes out of their normal bundle, so you're not incurring any cost, it's user friendly, but you can still have diverse routing, so if data center A or site A goes down, it automatically fail the calls over to site B. Load balance it, so you're running active-active, running active-passive, you've got choice within that. Take that further, the other thing you get with SIP, I quite often hear, ooh, goodness me, isn't it a call quality poor? Actually, no, because we route it over BT's traditional network. The other gotcha, the one that people really get concerned over, because people are putting a load of FUD into it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If I give you my numbers and I put them onto a SIP platform, does that mean that I can't get them back? With our platform, no, because we work with BT. So we can port onto BT, and hopefully you stay with us for a long time. The majority of our customers do. But if you actually say, you know what, we're going to move away, you can, because most people have interoperability agreements with BT. It's about giving you flexibility choice to work with us, so you can be flexible how you work with your customers. So behind the scenes, what we do is we take the calls from BT and we put them onto our SIP platform, and from our SIP platform we then route them over our network. But we don't have to route them over the network. Endemol, who's a client of mine, the big brother, they've invested in their wide area network, and we came along and they said, oh, SIP looks great, we could do with some of that, please. But I don't want to put extra tails in, because actually I don't need to. So all we did, because we control our SIP platform, we said, okay, let's do some interoperability testing. So we essentially hop onto their network and push SIP across their existing data network. It's all been worked with the carrier and is all signed off and approved and went through the change control process. But what it does is it gives you a huge amount. Yes, there's some savings, of course there are. But you know what? If I analyse the call savings of what you can buy a call for now against what you can buy on SIP, yes, there is a saving. But you know where the real savings come from? If I can take, you've got 30 sites with 30 ISDNs, how much spare capacity do you have with ISDN? I'll probably imagine you've got quite a bit. We're subscribed to 15 channels. I have, one client, they were putting 5 users in there everywhere. BT went and said, I'll put ISDN 30 because it routes your calls much better. It's dynamic routing, you don't need lots of ISDN too. So they've got, imagine that, they've got about 30 sites with ISDN 30 with 8 channels, and the most number of people is probably 5 users on there. You know what? How much overcapacity is in that network? So actually, if I can take that, consolidate those circuits down, how much spare capacity at £15 a month am I going to strip out of my OPEX budget? Take that a stage further. If I want resilience, I now got to physically go out and plumb another ISDN in and subscribe to the channels. So to deliver one resilient circuit, I'm going to be paying £30 a month, 2 ISDN channels. With our platform, essentially what you do is we'll give you 2 circuits for £7.50. So if circuit 1 fails, it fails over automatically to circuit 2. We can bill per extension. We can control the cost codes coming out of it. So actually that time you spent trawling through your bills about who spends what, let's just get it invoiced correctly so it goes straight to your accounts team and the cost centers they want. So, key thing for us here, NetX really enables that, because if we've now got the ability to get calls into on-premise, virtualized, your data center, or into the cloud, you can take your legacy infrastructure and move the funnel in, the way for calls to come in, into that environment. NetConnect, really exciting, really powerful piece of middleware software. So this is a software only application. It can sit on-premise, virtualized, data center, or cloud. Funny enough, as you'd expect it to do from us. This is really smart. It can connect with 63 different types of phone systems. So what it essentially does, on one side, it's got a load of connectivity to 63 manufactured different types of phone systems. Yeah. each instance can support 2,500 users. We can make it fully resilient, we can make it active, 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 passive, split it across multiple data centers. The key thing here is it's got lots of different sockets and connections into different types of software products. So essentially what you've now got is you're bringing together two worlds, telephone system world, database world, bringing them together on a platform. So should you decide to upgrade the Mitel or any of the different types of phone systems or change them, as long as we've got a connection to it, you can. NetConnect doesn't change. Should you decide to do an upgrade of a piece of software, again, that doesn't change. So what you've actually got now, instead of traditional world CTI one-to-one-to-one-to-one relationship, you upgrade one element and you potentially break the change, or you introduce a whole load of change control in all those links. You remove that. Now, where we could be very, very clever is around the link element. UCA from Mitel is a very, very powerful piece of kit, and I've put a lot of my clients are utilising it. What Microsoft brings to the table is the presence of having the presence information right through that Microsoft stack, so I can go into an email and I can see who's available. If someone's away from their desk for a period of time, I can set a counter and the colour can change. It gives me that information. People invest a lot of money into Microsoft, they want to bring it into the environment. You don't have to get rid of your Mitel environment. Why on earth, in a risk-averse environment, would you want to write off all this money and stability in the world of Mitel for the sake of putting it onto Link, because actually Link's new? Have you ever tried deploying Contact Center on Link or UC applications on Link? You know what? That's past the point of bleeding edge. So what we're able to do is we're able to take the Link environment through NetConnect and bring the two worlds together. So we use Link in-house. So yesterday, I was working on a tender, and I may want to bring Steve into ask him a couple of questions. I know he's busy. I can see he's busy because the status is telling him busy. Drop him an IM. We can get that information back. Actually, I want to call him because he's free. I just click to dial. My Mitel handset's ringing, and my presence on Link has changed. Take this stage further. That client I referenced with 80 sites globally, what's the one common thing they've got running through their organisation? What's the one common thing they've put a ton of money into? Link. Am I going to displace Link? Probably not. Because someone will probably lose their job if Link's binned after spending money across 80 sites, 4,500 users globally. What they have got is an awful world of pain around the edge of that with all their different phone systems. So what if I could go back to them and say, you know what, let's keep all of your existing phone systems for now. Clearly they need to be changed, but let's do it step by step time. Identified on risk, identified on when we want to make the change, when the business demands that change is made, but actually I can still deliver a global phone system through Link. So what we would do is we'd have the Link environment, we'd wrap that round NetConnect around that, and essentially then hook in all the different phone systems. So you've got Link here, and around that we put NetConnect, and then from this I connect to all the PBXs. So it means that I could, for argument's sake, have a legacy Alcatel system there. I could, for argument's sake, have I could have an Alcatel here, I could have Mitel here, I could have, I don't know, Siemens over here. What I'm able to do through Link via NetConnect is to put presence on all these legacy handsets. So now I've now created a global phone system. Fantastic, we're all talking on a common platform. The next thing we're able to do is I'm now able to go back in and say, you know what, we're running a contact center on that, no failover, no resilience, a massive ouch if that goes down. We're exposed on this one. Right, you know what, where do we want to go to? Well, actually what I want to do is I want to put a Mitel infrastructure up into the cloud, because actually I don't want to have the headache anymore of 80 different types of phone systems and all the pain that goes with managing them and upgrading that. I just want, you know what, Britannic, just put a system in there and migrate users to it. So what I'm now able to do is to say, okay, I've decommissioned that, and I'm now bringing my contact center over to here. And I can gradually work around the estate and pull the users over onto my MCP environment. While I'm doing that, I've still got my presence and connectivity there. At that point, we're then in a position where we said, okay, you know what, all the legacy world's gone, and you may say, you know what, I really want to do generic link. Okay, what we could do is we could bring that into NetX, and we've got a plug-in that can give you the SIP connection directly into link, if you really wanted that. But actually, why do we really want that? When we've got a fantastic stable platform that's been doing voice for many, 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 many years. So I can deliver the presence to the desktop in an email across the whole Microsoft stack, and have migrated my users over to a full cloud-based platform. That's the power of NetConnect. Yes, NetConnect has your screen popping, so a call comes in, pops the database. We can do really clever things with it as well. So we can grab a call coming in, and we can look at that call, and we can interrogate the database, and we can route that call based on the conditions of your database. Scenario, sales, very generically, sales call comes in, looks at the account, says, oh, hang on a minute, they're on credit stop, I'm going to put them over, instead of putting them through to the sales team, I'll put them through to credit control. Or from a support perspective, the call comes in, there's a recognised ticket for that person, so actually I'll send it through to the person who's dealing with that ticket, because I can see they're on or off the phone, or if they're not available, I use the skill-based routing in the Mitel platform to send it to the person with the next best skills to the person who's assigned to that ticket. So yeah, do some really, really clever things. As I said, we can deploy it wherever we want. Any questions on that? So, you know what? The cloud. There's a lot of, you can go to the cloud and there's cloud-based services all over the place. The reality is, what I'd recommend you look for is what actually that cloud consists of, where it's based, what its location is, how it's looked after. From our side, we sit across multiple data centers, so if you were to migrate up into our infrastructure, and I said we have customers who take their Mitel infrastructure, so we could go from SX2000, protect as much of the licensing and infrastructure as we can. We could take that and we could put that onto VMware within our data center, and you can subscribe to that as a per month basis. At the end of, say 3 years, you finish that, you can take your investment and put that into your data center should you so wish. So you've got choice to move it around. We've got multiple data centers in and outside the M25. We've got lots of connectivity to it and all joined up, and we're hooking into lots of other different clouds from it, as you'd expect us to do. If you want to go into more details, I'll gladly talk about that. So the next thing is, it's coming back to the different layers, isn't it? As we've got on the picture here. So the cloud at the top, and down at the bottom end down here, we've got to deliver some of these fantastic services. And we've got a range of services and access connections that we can use. So maybe for argument's sake, you just want to bring NetX in, you just want to bring SIP in initially onto your 3300 sitting in your rack in your IT room. We can do SIP across DSL. That's quality controlled DSL, so we want to control that. It's not because we're being difficult, it's because actually, you know what? Poor voice quality is really, really, really bad experience for your customers. If you've got 80% of your turnover coming over the phone, why would I expose myself to those unpleasant discussions internally? So we can control that. If you say to me, you know what, Richard, I've got a 100 meg pipe, I'm only using 10 megabit, I'm prepared to accept the risk, I can't control the call quality, but I want NetX to go across that, we'll do it. I've got a customer who's doing that at the moment. So we've got choice how we deploy that. So it's all great having this fantastic environment, but it's how we look after it. It's how we support that. The key thing here is with the SWAS that Steve mentioned. You're paying the money with SWAS. You've got to keep using it. The access is there. Keep within the N+1 basis. You've made that investment. Let's just keep moving the Mitel platform forward. It's similar to the UCC licenses. Yeah, you know what? It's a slight shift in the way you buy. It can actually be really cost effective when you're adding more users to it. We've got our own network operations center in Britannic, so we manage client sites, and we've got international rollouts, where we're managing and monitoring routers and systems at different sites. That's all picked up via our NOC. We use PRTG, PRTG. Heard of that as an application? It's really, really powerful. So we can actually look into the rack and we can actually be monitoring in our NOC the different applications, the different services that you've got running across your data center or our data center. We can share that information with you. That will trigger an alert into our NOC. So quite often, in a cloud-based platform with a voice service, we're knowing there's an issue before you. So let's consider worst case scenario. We lose data center A, or rack's gone down, or an instance of VMCD's gone down. NetX will automatically fail out before you even know about it, so your calls are taken care of. Whew, that's great, the business can still communicate. We get an alert out saying, got a problem here, guys. We're notifying you, we're logging a ticket, which you can see via our C-Zone portal. You can see straight away that there's an alert come out. We will be calling you and saying, you know what, there's a problem, this is what we're doing at the moment to deal with that. In the meantime, instances are failing over onto your secondary data center or onto our secondary data centers or third data center. So we're still maintaining the voice service while we're bringing that other area up to speed. Within our team, yes, we've got lots of ex-Mitel engineers and are highly qualified. We've also got some really clever guys around the integration piece, software developers, ex-Mitel developer, ex-VAR developers. We've also got some really clever guys on the wide area network. So at your disposal, essentially, you've got the pool and resource at your disposal to help you shape and design and support your infrastructure. Our services are available on the 5 nines availability, so should you want to put them up into our core, you can do. The question I posed to you, I'm biased, I think it does it. It's not because I'm sort of work for Britannic, but generally if I'm going into long-term client relationships, I've got clients I've had relationships 9, 10 years, I want to keep that relationship. Does cloud deliver voice effectively? I believe it does. What's your views around the room? No? Debatable? Silence? What do people think?
Yes, it's been sold already.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's within your data centers?
No, there's a facility that you can actually buy. I believe it's a large server which is running a Mitel solution, and you can actually rent the service, the telephone, and the people who are using it are estate agents, the big Foxtons.
Right.
They're using it, and they're using it in a. When you say cloud to me is just basically a data center. It's a data center thing, but what they do is they actually have broadband connectivity to that facility, and then they rent it, and they just rent it like you rent email through Google. It's a commodity.
And that's the key thing, it's the commoditization of it. But the difference with that, with how we're taking that to market, is that you can have your Mitel investment, all the licenses you've invested in, you lift and shift that and put that up into our cloud or your cloud, but take it as our cloud, and then you subscribe to that on a per user basis. So going back to the scenario I gave before of that nominal code we were talking about, your telecom spend.
Can we just talk about that?
Yeah.
You're talking about the licensing.
Yeah.
You've just spoken about the licensing that you've got at the moment, which was, and it kind of like, in my mind, it contradicted what you were saying. If you're putting in a new delivery, you called it the multiple or the new licensing model, which you have it all under one. At the moment, don't we have that available right now? So for instance, we've got 3300s over 5 sites.
Today,
don't we have that interconnectivity? So we only buy 100 licenses.
Sure.
It doesn't matter where they are, does it?
but so say you have 2 disparate instances of Mitel systems, like a controller at site A and a controller at site B. Those are both communicating, yes, to your customer record in what we call the AMC, a cloud-based license manager application.
Right.
But if you say, I want to move 30 licenses from that controller A across to that controller B, you have to go to your reseller. Your reseller then goes to the AMC, they reallocate those licenses at the level of the AMC.
So it's not
then you
dynamic.
have to resynchronize the controller to re-pull those licenses back down. And it's kind of can be a day or 2 process.
So it's not dynamic. You need an engineer on site to do that.
Potentially.
And you're saying this new model is basically a dynamic model.
Correct.
So what you do, for example, you've got 5 controllers. We'll take those 5 controllers, we'll bring them together and put them on an instance of VMCD. So you can, clients release, early releases of, pre-9, taking through and going on that journey. You're protecting that investment in licenses where we can as part of it, providing they're within Mitel's.
Is there any cost saving in doing that? Because I was looking to say, why don't we do this? Wouldn't it be a good idea? And I was told, well, what you've got is your belt and braces, because you've got these living Yeah, it's only at a time where they basically start looking to renew those, would you want to sort of do it? And it's sort of like it's a belt and braces approach, of having these 3300s spotted everywhere, as well as having sort of like, would it be an advantage to actually sort of like get rid of those in any way? But wouldn't it, would that?
From a software assurance and maintenance cost, I guess it depends. The trade-off is you've got that local survivability at a specific branch office because you've got a box there that will take over if the WAN fails. So there's a cost benefit to having it, but the fact that you've got another instance there, that's extra costs on the software assurance and support costs, I guess.
So it's the maintenance
from the power, but functionally you're not losing anything by having it there. There's no tangible benefit to losing it other than the fact that what business benefits potentially you could get by.
You also said, and I'll stop after this. You said that you needed to have your presence, your cloud, near your users. You said it in 3 slides back.
Near your users?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, exactly that. In the way that you need to have your presence, your Mitel service, whether it be cloud-based, needs to be near users.
No. But you can deploy it to the cloud. So essentially, you could say, you know what? I've got 5 sites. I don't want to have all my, essentially, I've got a VMware environment that's built out in your core, wherever that be it in your data center, or you want to move it completely, take it away from your entire infrastructure. So you can take that environment, bring everything together very crudely, and put it up into a data, migrate it up onto a VMware environment. From your user perspective, you can connect to that cloud however you wish, by whatever circuit you need.
I think the slide specifically you're referring to is talking about latency.
Yeah, it's latency.
It's about having, I think, Richard, the point of that slide is to sort of say make sure you've got the right connection. The Britannic DSL service rather than an off-the-shelf, managed wholesale DSL service at a location. 20 handsets on the back of it, one of them using it at times fine, but when you want low latency, low contention, and those sorts of services, I think that's
It's the principle of the WAN, isn't it? If you're trying to get more down, if you're trying to get more services, more bandwidth down a circuit than the circuit can give you, you're going to hit latency issues. So it's all about right sizing that circuit. And that's really, really important, because if you've got a merger and acquisition strategy or you've got a growth strategy, actually the principle, if you take Trailfinders, those guys, they deploy high street travel, turning over just short of £1 billion. 96% of that's over the phone. So they would traditionally, in an old world, they wanted to open up a new site in Exeter supporting 8 agents. So they have put 3300, an IQ server, a CCM server, a router. That's a lot of cost going into and expense and ongoing management to support 8 users. Now, because they put everything up into 2 data centers, essentially 3 days to deploy a site. It's programmed, it's set up, users are trained, circuits implemented, guy turns up on site, commissions the router, puts the handsets onto the LAN switch, training is delivered, that site's now live. That's the flexibility of the cloud. By having, you've got that, whereas before you were very hardware specific on the edge. Okay, so just touching, our approach very much is around working with you at the start of the project to actually pull it apart and actually look at what you've got within your telecoms environment, and then how we actually start moving through the progression of moving to, the upgrade process you're following, be it up to virtualization or up into your data centers. The approach we adopt is very much around taking the time and effort at the front end to actually pull apart your current environment. Once we've got that, then working through a controlled rollout whereby we're bringing in essentially, the ideal place we're getting to, the biggest benefit at the lowest risk and the lowest cost. And then essentially moving through the stage where we stabilize your entire environment. We then go through rationalizing it. So what we try and do is take out unnecessary bits and unnecessary costs, standardize the deployment, so for argument's sake, Mitel handsets everywhere, and then looking to optimize, and that's the point where you're bringing in maybe CTI, the screen popping, or maybe some of Lisa's UC applications around the mobiles. So let's just run through very quickly. Okay, so this is Kent Messenger. So they're in a position whereby what they were looking to do was try and achieve some key benefits across their organisation. They were looking to essentially as detailed. Simplify the management, take a lot of cost out of the business. Their IT manager was leaving the organisation. They were trying to struggle with delivering more services across their infrastructure and striving to achieve innovation. So they were on a mixed estate, mixed suppliers. Total pre-cloud running costs annually was £112,000 annually. Their infrastructure looks something along the lines like this. I don't know if anyone can relate to a similar sort of environment. Fairly complex and trying to manage it. So what we did is we worked with them to essentially declutter and simplify. So we lifted them, protected the MyTel investment that was already made on the existing infrastructure, and we lifted that and put that up into a data center. So again, you can be physically rack mounted 3300s because that's where you feel comfortable, or you can physically deploy it across onto a VMware environment. We connected NetX in on the right-hand side, which gave us the ability of consolidating all the numbers, gave them automatic failover, cut out a lot of cost on spare ISDN lines, but it also gave them the ability of, should there be a sudden demand of something, an inquiry coming or a press release has gone out or something that's triggered a response, they can very quickly burst up the connectivity as well. So if you need more channels at set periods of time, that works very well within Trailfinders at this time of year when they're busy with holiday bookings, where they want to open up the connectivity. The net result is out of that is that they got a new system, they decluttered the supply chain. From a cost saving perspective, they reduced their running costs by nearly 50%, which is quite a major saving, I'm sure you agree.
Presumably that's not inclusive of call charges.
That wasn't consumables, no, but call charges I would expect against standard BT would be looking at 35 to 40% saving on that as well, on experience. Yeah. So from a fixed perspective, we've brought that right down. If you then shift that to be the principle of, instead of a telephone system costing X number of thousands of pounds, what would happen if you could actually cost per user who used voice? And you took that a stage further. What happens if you could put a cost for bringing in an ACD user, bringing in a mobile worker, bringing in and supporting a standard desk-based user? So you now know how much it costs to support that user. So you can communicate that back to the business. So should the business decide they want to take on more staff in key areas, should they decide they want to go down an acquisition route, you are now in a position where you're able to actually cost the users. You're also able to flex up and flex down, should you so wish, the amount of users you have subscribed to your estate. So you've got a huge amount of flexibility now in taking away that rigidity of a traditional on-premise type platform. The really, really important thing here is that it's opened up the business continuity. That organisation had a lot of complexity within their existing estate. When they moved to this environment, it was simplified, but it was highly available. How easy would it be to deploy that in your current environment without utilising the cloud, and how much would that cost? And that's probably a worthwhile calculation to go through. So from their perspective, from Ken Messenger's perspective, that they felt that the key drivers was working with someone right at the front end to help shape, model it, and cost it. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking such a big cost saving, we'll need to have confidence it can actually stand up to the delivery. Because it's a big thing to say, I'm going to cut my costs by half and then not deliver it. That's not a happy place. But also conversely, the ongoing support of protecting and supporting that environment, especially if you're looking at outsourcing it.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Who's the data provider that they were currently using?
I can find out, I'll let you know.
I mean, because obviously this is all reliant on their own environment as well.
Yeah.
So, as you were saying a bit earlier on, you need to make sure that when element is up to date,
Is right sized, yeah.
or sign disclaimers accordingly. So, I mean,
So how we'd work with that, there's two choices. You either say, my existing infrastructure isn't fit for purpose, in which case you could use the same infrastructure for NetX, the same WAN. Or what we'll do is we'll bring one of our NOC specialists to work alongside your WAN provider to right size that network and to do the due diligence around it. So we'd actually scope that at the front end. Ideally, you're running on one environment, but you know what you can run on two? ISS runs on two, they've got their data environment, and then we've got the NetX platform dealing with the voice. So as and when they're then rolling out to Barclays Bank or they're rolling services into the MOD, they don't have to worry about that data network, they can push a voice
I've
out.
got a very similar environment where at the moment we've got very, very our Glasgow site, for example, was very poor connectivity, so there's no way we could roll out the solution, so we have to have an on-site device which is out of date, out of maintenance agreement, all those kind of other things. So in order to move that, it looks very, very desirable, but it all depends on what you can do at the end point.
It does, but should you hit worst case, you know what, where you can't deliver a good service, then with the flexibility you've got, you just put a MITRE controller onto the edge. That may be the only choice you've got to deliver that, but you can still have everything else running on support. Ideally, we've got enough connectivity so we don't need to do that. The other thing to consider is when we're talking about this move to the cloud, if you've already invested into the physical 3300 controllers, what we're doing is working with clients and saying, actually, you know what? Well, let's turn those into essentially a resilient trunk gateway and leaving them onto the edge of the network. So should we ultimately lose SIP, unlikely, but it's a business risk, we can still have RTN connectivity in. But we'd certainly work with you from right side. You'd be surprised what we can actually get down circuit. We can do some pretty clever stuff now with DSL services. But yeah, we are ultimately governed by the connectivity, by the plumbing. Okay. Hopefully today is the last slide before we break for lunch. The ability to deliver an integrated ICT infrastructure, I think, we're very passionate over it because it can do, and we've proven with the savings from Kent Messenger and a number of other clients who've gone through this route, that actually an integrated ICT infrastructure can really optimise your workforce. There's no doubt over that. We can harness the mobile cloud, we can harness the WAN environment, you can harness your data centre environment, we can bring all of those services together and deliver a joined up solution. We're then in a position where actually we can be pretty agile. So should we need to open more sites quickly, we can do. Example, Trailfinders. Should we need to scale, add more capacity to it, not a problem. Visibility across the organisation. That's the really, really big concern that I certainly see when you're talking to board of directors about the idea of letting people go out and work out in the field. What are they truly doing? Are they really available to work? By bringing in Link or the UCA applications, we can actually see that and harness that and share that out across the organisation. Collaboration is really, really flexible, and I use the point of elastic working. You know what? I may be here today, I could be out on the road tomorrow, Monday I may well be in the office. I want the flexibility of how I work, and I need the applications and services. My customers have got to contact me, and if they can't contact me, I've got a problem because I need to be speaking to customers. But the business needs to be able to give me the tools to work when and where I want and how I work with that. There's no doubt the cost savings by starting to integrate all your infrastructure together can absolutely drive some cost savings out. Kent Messenger 50%. I've got clients whereby we're delivering 15-20% savings on their current spend, but actually what we're doing is we're deploying voice recording, we're deploying contact centre, we're deploying UC working across the entire organisation and still delivering and yielding savings. Big thing, and don't ignore the shift to go to an OPEX model. As I said, the nominal code that you'll likely see will probably look something like that. And what you're actually able to do is deliver, in principle, providing numbers stay static. Your whole telecoms world is that, with the exception of your calls, you're able to deliver at essentially a cost per user model. So therefore, going forward, you're able to actually project the saving back into the FD and how the FD wants to manage that. That is incredibly powerful, especially when you want to start looking at growing the infrastructure or adding more users to it. Technology changes. We've spoken about the principle today of bring your own cloud, the Gartner view of the personal cloud, the integrated internet. With a joined up integrated solution, you very quickly can drop different technologies in to support that. Above all, you are a valid partner to your customers as you would be to us. If you're not delivering that value back into your customer supply chain, what's the impact on the business? What's the net result? Potentially customers don't call you, and that's not the place that you want to be. So essentially, if you can make it as easy as possible for customers to do business with you, to communicate with you, that's got to deliver a tangible benefit back into the organisation.